All right, it is Modcast time with one key obvious replacement. I'm Chad Hastings, Jeff Ketchum off doing boss things today, but the other three mods are ready to roll for it. We're going to dig into their brains today, specifically when it comes to the big house divided matchup on November 30th. Feels like there's a lot of talk about that after last weekend. Anwar Richardson, Jason Sukamel, Alex Dunlap, they are all here ready to roll. Jump on in to the chat if you want to throw us a super chat. We appreciate it. Everybody knows that Money B is in the building and ready to go. So, Money B, what's up? A good morning to everybody else. Buck Wild, I'm glad you're checking out the show today. And, sometimes you're in a Weird Al Yankovic mood.
I haven't thought about Weird Al in years.
That is interesting.
Alex, as a music guy, do you respect a guy like Weird Al, or what? What as a music?
I like Weird Al growing up. I mean, I thought his, I haven't listened to him much as an adult, but as a kid, I thought his songs were hilarious, dude.
Well, I thought Pee Wee Herman was cool as a kid as well.
Can I make a confession? When I was probably second grade, me and my brother and a couple of our friends wrote some Weird Al Yankovic songs. We're changed all the lyrics, and we thought they were great, dude. We're gonna make money off of these things someday. Yeah, so never.
Little Weird Al. I had a Weird Al period at one point, Buck Wild. So we can understand. You love what you love. I mean, you can't account for taste when it comes to music. So enjoy your Weird Al today. We'll talk some college football and other things. So, gentlemen, as we record this show, we're 32 days away from the big game in College Station, and both these teams are sitting at 7-1. Texas has 3 more conference games to go. The Aggies have 2 more conference games to go. So I want to get y'all's thoughts on kind of both teams and where they are. We'll start with Texas because I want y'all's thoughts as you've had another chance to kind of process what happened in Nashville. Where you guys are on this team. Let me start it this way. Jason, I'll start with you. Your gut on whether Texas goes to College Station at 10-1, handles these other 3 conference games, and they go in at 10-1. What's your feeling on that right now?
I still think yes, Chad, but I mentioned this briefly on Almore's show. I feel less confident about that than I did a month or so ago before Texas played with Mississippi State and Georgia happened and Vanderbilt was close. This Texas team has a lot of room for improvement. We know when this Texas team is on, it can be really, really good as any team in the country. But we need to start seeing that, right? Because if we don't see it pretty soon, this kind of, 7 out of 10 performance, 6 out of 10, well, that's the norm. So we need to start seeing better play from Texas, particularly on offense. But yeah, I still think so. I mean, that Arkansas game's tricky. Florida, it's at home. They should be fine there. Kentucky's seems like a disaster, but that Arkansas game's a little worrisome from a Texas perspective. They don't play better because Arkansas is going to be ready for that game. But I'm going to go with yes. I still think Texas goes into that game with 1 loss. But again, I'm a little less confident in that prediction than I was roughly a month ago.
Alex, would you agree? You like that feel on 10-1, or you think there's going to be a slip?
Arkansas has been, just watching them lately, it feels like they're on, they got some momentum. It feels like they got some juice right now. I don't know if you guys have been feeling the same way about them, but when I watch them, I'm just like, God, this last week, they put up, what did they score this week? They put up some
58.
58.
But Alex, 2 weeks ago, they lost 34-10. At LSU.
Jason, I think with the SEC, I just think this year it's not so much about who you've lost to, or you lost this, or you only scored this many, or Georgia only beat Kentucky by a point, or just I think it's sometimes the way I'm looking at the SEC this year, and I don't know if this is going to be the same every year or whatever, man. I think it's just been awesome to follow the SEC this year. It's been a much more intriguing, experience than and much more engaging just to follow these teams than it was. I never had any care about what Kansas State or Kansas or Iowa State were up to and stuff. And this year, you're just looking at it, it's fascinating. You're just like, well, wait, which team's actually better here? How good? I've been thinking all year, how good is Mizzou? Stuff like this. And I think that what I've come to is maybe with Arkansas, they've just put it down that they can do that off offensively. I've seen it, so now I know that they're capable of it. So it just worries me, even if there's been other stuff on the record that maybe makes it not so worrisome. So, dude, Florida's even put some stuff down lately that can make you be a little worried. So, and then obviously with A&M, I would kind of lean to you on this one, Chad, about just Marcel Reed. What kind of animal do we actually have on our hands here? Is this a put him in and get a spark out of the guy, and you know, like the college version of like a Ryan Fitzpatrick that comes in and just looks completely awesome, filling in for some dude for 2 games, and then you never know when the clock's gonna strike midnight and he turns back into a pumpkin. I don't really know what to make of him, but clearly, you know, you'd be worried about A&M with their with that defense, with the running game they've established, and especially if it's not Connor Weigman, you know, and it's that guy, and it's the Marcel Reed that we saw in the second half last week. So I think that look, man, I think that 1 loss and 2 losses are basically, you know, 49% and 49%, and then like a 2% chance that there's, you know, that they slip up twice along the way. But I think it's just about as likely that they lose another as that they finish, you know, with no more losses. I think it's basically a coin flip.
Anwar, you see this team close up in a way that not many get to. You were there in Nashville watching it all play out, and you hear Sark. You're right there in the room with all the reactions of coaches and players. What's your feel? 10-1 going to College Station. If I send you to the window in Vegas to put your money on.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt Anwar. I thought you said just 1 loss for the rest of the season.
No.
Okay,
I'm saying,
so going into College Station.
Do you go to College Station?
So I don't think that's 50-50. I think that's more like 70-30.
Gotcha.
That
okay.
It's 10-1 going into that game.
Anwar, give me your thoughts.
Yeah, you know, it's well, I have a lot of thoughts, right? Like, you know, obviously when Alex talks about the SEC being more intriguing, right? It's true, because I was thinking, you know, so you ever have when Texas would have like a later game and you're trying to force yourself to watch like Iowa State versus Texas Tech at the 11 o'clock game, you're just dying. You're like, why am I watching this? Like there's got to be something else I can do with my life other than watch these games, right? And so now you find yourself watching all the games and keeping up with everything. And we do our power rankings, so it's even more appealing. And so the league is fun, you know, just to be in. It's reminiscent of the NFL, where, you know, it just seems like any week something can happen. Like Mississippi State may be crap, but they can raise up and be in a 4-quarter game with Georgia, you know, and so those things happen. And so you know, Kentucky Kentucky sucks, but they gave Georgia fits. Like Georgia beats them by 1 point, you know? So it's a very interesting conference. And then when I think about Texas, I feel like this is, you know, Sarkis doesn't apologize for ugly wins. Like you just won't get him to do that. And so I feel like this is reminiscent of last season in some ways, where they have that ugly win against Houston. And that's a game that kind of could have lost. A lot of things fall their way, but they find a way to win that. TCU, close game. Kansas State, close game. And then they just kind of find a way and then just keep it moving. And I think that's what I feel like this is where we're at. I think Florida might be a close game. Arkansas, they may escape, right? And I think they'll find ways to win. I think that's just kind of a Sark thing. And then at the end of the day, you know, they're in a championship game, and you're like, yeah, you know, and then they get there and they're playing to get there in a playoff game, and you're like, you don't think twice about it. So I would probably go with Alex. I'd probably go 70-30 probably with that. I think they'll get past. I think Arkansas will be competitive, and I think we'll talk ourselves into the ways that they can lose that game, and then they'll just find a way to win, and then we'll get to College Station.
Yeah, and in terms of the confidence, you know, looking for those positives on the Texas side,
can I just ask you quickly? Can I put on my like a post hat here and ask you, like, as the Aggie, like I'm being serious. What do you think of Marcel Reed?
Well, and that's where we were when we get to A&M, Alex. I think that's part of the obviously part of the ingredients of that question. It feels
all
to
right.
me.
So, all right. So we're putting A&M off until after we get done with Texas, and then you'll tell us about Marcel Reed.
Well, that's what I was going to do, but I answer your question. I think there was a moment in the season where I thought they might need to go with Reed if that's the offense you're going to call. Then the Missouri game happens, and then I can argue Wigman had his opportunity to keep the job, and he did not take it. And now, after that moment on Saturday night, my gut tells me Colin Klein would tell us all, fellas, this is the offense I have to run, and this is the guy that has to run it. And I think he's going with Reed.
Okay.
That's what my gut tells me. Connor Wigman had an opportunity at Starkville to take that job officially. He threw 2 picks, and he should have thrown 4. And I just think they watched that happen, and then they saw the sluggish start against LSU, and I think Colin Klein was like Rocky in Rocky IV, but he threw the towel. I think he had the guts to throw it. So I think that's what's happened with that team.
Yeah, I don't read tech zags, or like I don't follow it as close as you guys do, or as close as you do. Like it would feel to me like you got to play that guy, but I wasn't sure if there was internal dynamics or there was any kind of any politicking that's going on with Wegman, or how it's all going to go. So I guess when we talk about A&M, we'll talk about whether or not what he did is sustainable moving forward.
Right. Yeah, that's going to be the big question there. For A&M, it's 2 road games that they've got in a row. But what I was going to say about Sark, it was, for everything else that Nashville was, it was a 1-score win. That's something Sark's didn't start out great at Texas. It was 2-5, and then it was 2-5, and then it was 3-2 last year. He got it turned a little bit, and that's the first 1-score game that's occurred all year, and he won it. So, Anwar, I think you're right. You're never going to hear him apologize. I think he's Saban in that way. He wants to be Nick Saban in that way, because I don't ever remember Nick Saban showing up the Monday after a 24-21 gritty, ugly conference win and apologizing for it, or making excuses, or even saying like, well, that's not going to work against this team. I don't know. If I'm a fan, I don't know if I want to hear my coach say that. Like that's for us and fans. But do we really want to hear our coach show up on a Monday and go, boy, that's not going to be good enough in Fayetteville? Like, I don't know. I don't know if I want to hear my coach say that out loud. I want him to scream it at the players behind the scenes, but he doesn't need to tell us that, does he?
No, I think he's saying what he's not going to apologize for being 7-1. Like who do you win, right? I mean, it's like if you play fantasy football and 1 week, you play and you get to the playoffs, but you get like a 60-55 win, and you would have not defeated any other team in that week. But it doesn't matter. You don't apologize. You just take your 60-55 win and you move on to the semifinals. That's what Sark is. It's like, I don't care if you think it's ugly. Like it was Vanderbilt. They were ranked 25th in the country. They beat Alabama. Yeah, there's some things we need to clean up. We could do better at that. But I'd much rather take 7-1. He's like, he doesn't care. And at the end of the day, the outside stuff doesn't matter to him, whether you like Quinn or you don't like Quinn, whether you're A dot, K dot, whatever dot you are. He don't give a damn about your dots, right? He doesn't. He's just going to say we've got a chance to achieve our goals, and that's just how he is, and that's how he operates.
Yeah, and Jason, we're in a 12-team playoff era. Like, if we weren't already there, aren't we in the part of the season where it does not matter as long as you just win? Like, if I give Texas fans a 20-19 victory in every game they're about to, all 4 of these games, they take it to easily. You say, where do I sign? Just win. That's all it's about.
Yeah, I would say for the most part, that's true. But you also you might need some beauty points, okay? Even if you get those, if you win every game by 1 point, you're like, okay, fine. But you might need those beauty points if you want that first round bye in the playoff, right? If you want one of those top 4.
But if you go win in Atlanta, you could go win in Atlanta 2019. That gets you the bye.
You probably do, unless you have somebody look at it and say, wait, they just keep getting by the skin of their teeth. But probably, listen, if you win out and then win the conference championship game, even if every game is by 1 point, you're probably right. You probably get that bye, but you know, you want to give yourself a little bit of cushion. You know, you don't want to win by one, and then you lose to A&M by 17, and people are like, this team hasn't beaten anybody worth a damn all year. So I think there is something to be said for kind of beauty points in the way you win, but it's not the end all be all. Obviously, getting the wins is the most important thing, and if you win by one, you know, maybe still be a little bit critical, but just be happy that you won. That's the bigger picture.
So
I say this year in the SEC, if you just go win the ball games.
This
is surviving advanced stuff, dude. This is like it's wild out there in the SEC, man. Not like
yeah. If somebody had told me they were going to throw goalposts in a river in Nashville, I'd have been like, wait, which game would have been? I wouldn't have used like, which game are they going to throw goalposts? Yeah. Bama, really? Okay.
And look, they lose by a few points against the number 5 team in the country. So I mean, you gotta give them some sort of credit at some, no matter what, you know, bad loss they may have had earlier in the year. We like, what was it, Ball State or something like that? They lost to. At the end of the day, they beat Bama. Texas escapes. You got to say, all right, well, that program's doing pretty good. You know, they're actually a pretty good program.
Yeah, that's a gnarly group. I wouldn't want to mess with them in a bowl game. That's going to be a weird matchup for somebody. Guys, in terms of, you know, in terms of what we're seeing on the other side of things. So Saturday night with LSU and A&M, winner was going to still be undefeated in conference, but I thought both teams showed us exactly what they've shown us all year. The ability to be pretty good and the ability to make you go, really? Is that the... And they play each other, and LSU made more mistakes. A&M takes advantage. They make the quarterback switch. So now the question for them is going to be, they have a November pillow in New Mexico State. The 2 conference games are at South Carolina this weekend as we record on a Tuesday, and then at Auburn. Those are their 2. They go to Auburn right before they play Texas. So based on what you guys saw from a distance on Saturday night, did you believe enough in that Marcel Reed running the Aggie offense? Let's say that's it. Let's say, to answer Alex's question, let's say they're going to go with number 10, and that's going to be their offense. You guys trust that offense to go get those 2 road SEC wins? Anwar, let me start with you.
It's tough. I mean, because, you know, there is a surprise factor when a guy comes in, right? You can't ignore that, right? And at the end of the day, it's interesting because, you know, Marcel Reed comes in and he's electric as far as, you know, running the ball. It wasn't like he was like lights out from a passing perspective either. I mean, I think he was 2 for 2?
I was going to say, I think he completed 2. Now, the one down the field to Thomas was nice, but there were only 2 complete. He didn't attempt 24 passes in a game where you have a bigger sample size and where you can say, oh, well, I know exactly what to expect from him. You know, when he has played, it's been okay. But he's never been anything where you looked at and said to yourself, okay, that guy is that dude. Now, in that moment in time, it was great, right? In that moment in time, it was electric, and you can't ignore that, man. That was something that was good. That was a great performance. He had a good performance against Florida, this year. It was okay against like a Bowling Green this year. Was okay against Arkansas. So I'm not quite sure that how much that can be duplicated as far as that is concerned. Now, is he a better version of Gerard Hurd? Yeah, maybe, because the thing is, Gerard Hurd had that electric game versus Cal. You're like, holy crap! Like, look how good this guy is. And then defensive coordinators is like, oh well, can he throw the ball? And then you sort of just slowly go down. And then the one thing I can say, and Alex would know this better than me, but as far as the particulars on this, I feel like overall Sark has done really good against mobile quarterbacks. Like that I haven't noticed, the guys really mobile quarterbacks killing them the way that we saw that happen in LSU. Like you haven't seen mobile guys really just
go crazy against this team. So I think when it's all said and done, Texas will be fine as relates to him. So good moment. But even South Carolina's got a good team. They got a decent defense. Like getting past South Carolina, if they're preparing for him, that in itself is going to be a tough contest. South Carolina, there's a couple of games they should have won this year that they haven't. So before we even get there, Texas A&M getting past South Carolina, I think is a really tough task.
Yeah, it's a game I've been definitely pointing to for a while now. Last time they went there, they gave up 42 in an embarrassing loss that nobody saw coming. And it was the moment for some people that meant Jimbo was done. South Carolina is the place where Jimbo's time at A&M kind of died. For those that were watching and paying attention, that's a loss nobody could deal with. And so we'll see if they can respond. Jason, I've been saying it the whole time with Mike Elko. From the moment I saw him in a press conference, I kept thinking the same thing. This is going to be real. I just don't know if it's going to be real good. This is one of those games. These two games are a chance for him to prove it's really good because they need to be consistently really good, which is not what they were under Jimbo.
Well, you and I, Chad, we're doing, it must have been the recruiting hour show, I think. And we were talking about the Mississippi State game, and we were both like, wouldn't surprise us if they went and lost in Starkville, right? Now, of course, they went and won that game, and then obviously had a good showing on Saturday. But I put Texas A&M at number 2 in my ranking the SEC rankings this week. And I said, I feel a little dirty doing it because I don't think they're that good. I don't think they're as good as their record shows. And I've made this, I think their quarterback play is so suspect. I got so many thoughts bouncing around my head, but I just don't think they're that good. I don't think they'll be there in the end. But right now, who are you going to put above them? I mean, you're going to put Texas the way Texas has played of late. I mean, I guess you could make a case for that, but I don't know, maybe not. So I went with A&M, but yet I'm still predicting Texas to win that game in College Station by double digits. So I'm kind of speaking out of both sides of my mouth. But the way teams are playing right now, I've got to rank A&M higher. But listen, A&M cannot win, probably not against South Carolina, certainly not against Texas with Connor Wegman at quarterback. They just can't. The guy's just not good. I'm sorry. Marcel Reed, listen, man, we're bagging on Marcel Reed, not bagging on him, but like we don't know what he is, and I agree. His passer rating, he's got about 40% of the passing attempts that Quinn Ewers has. So he doesn't have a ton of reps, but his passer rating is 1.5 points lower than Quinn Ewers, right? So he's been pretty successful when he's throwing the ball. But I do think a team like Texas, with that Texas defense, can come in, try to take away the running game with him and Moss, and then you make him beat you with his arm when you know it's coming. I don't know that he can do that. So, but to your point, Chad, this game this weekend against South Carolina, it's going to be a really good test. And even if A&M goes out and wins that game, let's say they win it by 13 points, we're like, okay, all right, A&M, now you have my attention. Would it then shock me if they lost to Auburn a couple weeks later? No, it wouldn't shock me if they lost at Auburn. So, A&M, they're winning. They're a good football team, but I think they also have a lot of average in them for stints that can catch up to you in the SEC. If you play average football for a half or 3 quarters, pretty mediocre teams can beat you. So, if A&M kind of has a mediocre game, they could certainly lose to South Carolina. They could certainly lose to Auburn, and obviously they could lose to Texas.
Yeah. By the way, Alex, Cotton is out on a limb. Cotton, thank you for being gutsy enough to type something like this. Reed ain't Jaden Daniels. Man, bold comments.
Jaden Daniels, that guy is just not. He's not real. I don't even want to discuss the sadness. The sadness I feel watching him play for Washington as a Cowboys fan. Like, I don't know how to express my full sadness. But what a play. Well,
what a play.
You can just go up to Chicago and commiserate with Bears fans about that.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Is it bad that my Steelers play him next week? Their Steelers are off this week. And I was like, I hope he tweaks his ankle a little bit next week because that guy's really, really good at that.
Like get sick, not tweak an ankle.
Well, just
like
something where he misses like 1 week, Almer. I just wanted to miss that one game.
What about like the mumps or the measles or something?
Fine, perfect. Just keep him out one week. And then
hey, as a Cowboys fan, Anwar, I am looking for a serious head cold. Maybe when those Cowboy games come around. Good grief.
The Anwar asked, Anwar talked about mobile quarterbacks versus Sark, and like I don't have the numbers or anything, but I can think about it. And I mean, you didn't see like a Jalen Milroe, take over a football game. I think, and then this year, what it's been.
The Michigan quarterback.
Well, whenever Orgy came in, or Hawkins was considered one of these guys that could spit out on you.
Yeah.
There was one other. Oh, Michael Van Buren was considered a guy that they didn't have it on tape yet, but we've seen that's we saw in the high school tape that was a worry there. And it's like the one time I can remember where it kind of hurt him was maybe versus Dylan Gabriel. And that wasn't one that was necessarily really suspected as like a designed run type of thing. That was just, that was a bad rush lane stuff. And we all know about the miscommunications on the back end with those final 4 plays versus Oklahoma. But whenever I look at Marcel Reed, I hadn't looked at his stats until just now. I didn't realize. So, I mean, it was a magical game where you're just like, oh my gosh, this guy comes in, he's dominating the LSU, but it really was just his rushing. He had two attempts, 2 completions for 70 yards. So there was the big long 54. You remember the big long 54-yard one where you're just like, oh my God, he can run and he can sling it like this. And oh my gosh, look, he's unstoppable. But it's two passes.
No, that's what I'm saying. It made it seem grand. And they look at the numbers like, wait a second, it wasn't all that.
Yeah. And then look, it looks like, I guess, there were Chad. So did he just come in versus Florida, or did he start versus Florida?
I believe he started that game because that was when Wigman got banged up against Notre Dame. I believe he started the Florida game.
Pretty sure that's right. I remember watching that. Yeah.
Florida and Arkansas. I don't think Wigman saw the field in either one of those games.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. It's like the passing numbers aren't like great, but as far as his completion percentage and stuff in the 3 games, Florida, Bowling Green, Arkansas, but I mean, he got dubs in all those games, man, and multiple passing touchdowns in all those games. As far as the rushing, it's been there in every game except versus Arkansas. But I mean,
Alex, he did have a 394 passer rating on those 2 attempts against LSU last year.
They complete the long pass, no incompletions, right? Perfect.
Dude, to me, it just feels like one of these, like in scouting, you call it, if you don't get any measurables on a prospect, like he's hurt or something like that through the combine and everything, and or there's some other kind of nebulous thing about him, you say, well, it's kind of like a black box prospect. It's kind of like we're just going to have to wait and see, like open up the box and see what we have. I feel like that's kind of like the way I feel with Marcel Reed. It feels like there's a bunch of things that are a bunch of conflicting evidence here. Why did they go back to Wegman anyway? That's another thing. It's like there are these different things that are conspiring against one another in my head for me to put together a narrative of what this Aggies team is with Marcel Reed at the helm moving forward. Alex,
I don't know if it's the answer, but the thing I kept hearing was it was Connor Wigman's team even when he was hurt. And then Eli Drinkwitz was asked about the quarterback he was facing, and he assumed it was Reed. They asked him, hey, Coach, Wigman's listed on the depth chart this week. And he's like, no, we're preparing for Marcel Reed. He didn't think Wigman was playing.
Huh.
And then they start Wigman and thrash Missouri. Missouri's not a great team. We all know that now, especially as you watch it play out. But that's the day where I thought, okay, well, it's his team. You showed off the wide receivers. Colin Klein's made his point. Moving on. And then he has the game at Mississippi State, and it gets complicated. I think that's what happened to him.
Can I just say one thing, too? I mean, we're going to find out versus South Carolina. Like you can say what you will about South Carolina, man, but I mean, Beamer at the SEC Media Days. And boy, just what a great event and a great conference. The SEC is just the access and stuff. But like at SEC Media Days, when he was talking, he was saying like, you guys are going to vote us as the number 16 team in this league, and like, you know, we're going to show you guys and stuff. You know, he's been confident in this team, and that's a good defense. Every team that you see on the SEC media calls. Every week when there's a team having to go play South Carolina, they talk about how this is an elite defense. Cody is always talking about how they got just these great edge rushers. And I think, and you look at their schedule, and these guys play, you know, we're talking about how big a win it was versus LSU. I mean, they played within 3 points of LSU. They beat the absolute pants off of Kentucky. They stayed within 2 points of Alabama, right? They beat the brakes last week off of Oklahoma. It's like the worst game on their whole schedule was whenever they were riding a little bit high and Ole Miss comes into town. And
did you mention the officials screwed them out of the LSU game?
What?
Did you mention the officials screwing them out of the LSU game?
I forgot about it.
They should have won that. They should have won that game if the officials make a couple correct calls, I think.
So I think that for A&M, is A&M's game in the morning or the night this week?
6:30. It's another 6:30 ABC, just like with the LSU game.
Great, man. Well, that'll be a fun one to throw on the grill and put on the outside TV, man. Because that'll be one that is I think it'll be telling for A&M either way. I think that I honestly think a win versus South Carolina is a big win for them, and obviously it's very consequential if they go and lose, but I think I think it'll be very telling one way or the other. And I think if they win, I think we'll have to give them credit. You know, it's like they went in and they defeated a good opponent at home.
By the way, Alex, for your love of the SEC, they love to have their big games at night. And that just adds so much more to it than now. Granted, it's a longer day for all of us and a longer night for all of us, but they love these night games as opposed to the 11 o'clock kicks, that we were just subjected to. They like prime time, put on your light show, like let's get it on.
Hey, Anwar, speaking completely off the but just on the topic of the SEC, do you know those league meetings that you go to?
In Destin? Yeah.
Is that in Destin every year?
Yes.
Is that as simple to get into as the media days? Because
I was about to say Alex is angling to go to Destin for that.
Yeah, that was a little bit tougher, Alex.
I'm gonna see if old Chuck Dunlap will let me in this year, man.
that one is a little bit more quote unquote exclusive. So that was a little bit tougher.
Little bit of Dunlap to Dunlap love there. We'll see. We'll see if I can get myself in.
That being said, Alex, I off air, I can tell you that it's kind of loose around there. You can hang around the lobby and get a lot of stuff. So, you don't necessarily have to, but,
There you go. Fellas, before we wrap up, I wanted to get to a couple things. And one was kind of circling back around to Texas. I feel like as we discuss this game that's coming up November 30th, obviously it's the biggest game it can be if these two offenses really find themselves and find out what they are. We just talked about the A&M version with quarterback and how they really want to run things. Let's come back to Texas. And Anwar, I want to start with you. You were sitting in the room when Steve Sarkisian at his Monday press conference said Quinn played tremendous against Vanderbilt. I want to know what the room felt like, because I reacted hearing that word. I know it's semantics, but I just thought, did he just say tremendous? So let's talk about what this offense looks like and y'all's kind of, your assessment level, your concern level as we head into these next, 4 games, obviously, including A&M. But Anwar, what did that room feel like when he said tremendous, referring to Quinn's game?
I don't really pay attention to the people in the room, so I can't tell you that, to be quite honest with you. So I'm usually kind of locked in. I can tell you my reaction is twofold. It just, quite honest with you, for those of you who just want Arch, well, then just get through the next few games and you'll have him next year. Like you've got 4 regular season games, a conference championship game. So if Quinn bothers you that much, just know you only got 2 more months for a quarterback who led you to a Big 12 championship and a future, NFL draft pick and all those things. Just know you'll get rid of that guy for Arch. You'll have what you want come January. So I suffer as you will through the 7-1 season. And then but at the end of the day, I think Sark, for the most part, has been really consistent with his defense of Quinn, and to the point where he broke it down and he started talking about the screen game and the quick game, and really saying like he does exactly what I want him to do: the screen passes to the running back, the quick game. And so he don't throw it long. He's like, nope, this is exactly what it is. And some NFL coaches view a 3-yard pass the same way as a run. Alex could contest to that. A 3-yard pass is as good as a 3-yard run in their book.
It's better.
So, yeah,
Can be.
I mean, so I think for Sark, at the end of the day, he's fine with it. And again, when he's getting the wins, when it's all said and done, that's what he's going to look at when it's all said and done. Did I get the wins? And I think if Sark benched Hudson Card and never went back to him, because when he went and looked at the film, Hudson Card was confused and didn't know what was going on. And so at that point, he felt like he couldn't go back to him. He's going to look at the film. He feels like Quinn's eyes are in the right places. He feels like Quinn is making the right throws, right? So at the end of the day, in his view, if he looked at it and said, it's outstanding, if he's not worried about the tip passes, I can't be more concerned about something than someone else is. You ever have a friend of yours who's in a bad relationship and they're complaining about it, and you start trying to give them advice, and eventually you realize they're never leaving that person. And you're like, well, I can't be more concerned about your situation than you are. It's kind of where I'm at with this whole thing. Mm-hmm. Whatever. If that's his guy, that's his guy. And if Texas keeps winning, so be it.
Yeah. Somebody pull that audio. Anwar said Quinn and Sark are in a bad relationship.
It's always you, Jason. They're in a relationship of happiness.
They're in the pot. But Jason, we're in a situation where this, you can make all kinds of arguments about what we've seen and what we're seeing with this offense. There's an argument that can be made for there were definitely moments of it looking really, really good. And I could always make the argument, Sark's making it, got to clean some things up. But if you clean some things up, it's looked like a pretty damn good offense when it's good.
Yeah. And listen, man, I got back home at 1:00 last night. So I was traveling. I didn't even see the game. I was listening on my phone. I recorded, I need to rewatch it. So I haven't dissected it, but listening to Sark talk about it, like he said, hey, there were a few plays away, a couple bounces here and there that from this game being 41-10. Quinn throws the couple interceptions. He's like, yeah, they're tipped balls, this, that, and the other. Well, is that on Quinn? I mean, is that, but I'm with Anwar. He's never going, at this point, he's not going to bash on Quinn. I think Sark's in a kind of a weird position. He can't even pull Quinn if Quinn really goes out and struggles, because once he pulls him now, that's it. It's Archer's team, I feel like. Okay. You can't do what you did against Georgia again. Otherwise, Quinn is suddenly the backup for the remainder of the season. So, maybe it's a confidence thing. He needs to keep building Quinn up. Or maybe he truly believes it. I don't know what it is, but I don't think we're going to see any negative comments from Sark about Quinn, and not any negative actions in terms of pulling him off the field, because if he does, then you're opening up a quarterback controversy, and it's probably Archer's team moving forward. So it's about what I expected. I'm sure in the quarterback meetings, you're like, hey, Quinn, you got to do this. You got to see this. You got to avoid this. You got to, make this read. But he also said, hey, Quinn made some really nice plays. The audible for the touchdown to DeAndre Moore, when he audibled while Moore is in motion, veteran play. He said, hey, they came up on us one time. Why didn't you throw the ball downfield? They came up on us one time. We pushed it downfield for a touchdown. Other than that, they played back. So, we don't always know the calls and the intricacies of each call. We just kind of see it as a more general observer. So Sark knows way more than we do. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. But bottom line is, to my naked eye, Quinn needs to be playing a little bit better.
By the way, we got a super chat in from Barb's10. Thank you, Barb's10, for $10. 19 to 21 is tremendous. Quinn can't control when flags are thrown mid-drive and kills them. Quinn doesn't hit quarterbacks up high or not creating separation. Sark calls plays, not Quinn. Quinn got you to number one. There you go.
You know, it's an interesting thing, right? Because it's like Texas fans sometimes have they forgotten how bad quarterback play was at this university for years? Because I know when I got here, it sure wasn't worth a damn. Like I got here, David Ash, I mean, he's got a brain injury, and he plays one game and then he's done. Then it's Tyrone Swoops, and then it's Gerard Hurd, and I mean, you got it into this oblivion kind of thing. You have some good years with Sam, and then it's Casey Thompson and Hudson Card, and it's just like, that's just a shoulder shrug. And you finally get you finally get Quinn, and like last year he wins a Big 12 title, and it's like, man, this guy sucks. Like, really? Like that? Are you like, really? Have we forgotten like how despise not humble beginnings? It's like you're really just going to throw that guy away? The memories are a little short right now.
Onward, Quinn's a victim of two things. One, it's his lofty ranking. This is a 5-star plus, whatever he was number one player across the board consensus in 2 recruiting classes, even when he reclassified. So he's a victim. People have ridiculous expectations because of his recruiting ranking. And they've got Arch Manning sitting behind him. If it wasn't for that, I think, if he didn't have Arch, people would, I think, appreciate Quinn even more. But also, I think people hold him to such a ridiculous standard because of those recruiting rankings. Fair or not, but I don't want to say he's in a no-win position. That's not necessarily true, but he does have a couple angles working against him that most quarterbacks don't have.
Barb's10, we appreciate that super chat. Thank you so much. Texas obviously in the off week this week, and getting ready for that Florida game. Remember, next 2 games, 11 a.m. kicks. Florida at home, Arkansas on the road. Both have already been set as 11 a.m. kicks. I do not see any more super chats right now. One other thing I did want to mention, fellas, I will not dig too far in. It is so nerdy. But I would tell all the fans, as you start to think about the last part of the season, the tiebreakers in the SEC are more complex than you might be thinking they are. There is a 22-page document on the SEC website if you want to go look. Remember common conference opponents, remember the term strength of schedule, and realize that head-to-head might not matter if you're in a 3.
What are the first tiebreaker? What is the first tiebreaker?
The first tiebreaker, Alex, is head-to-head, but that's only if it's 2 teams. If it's 3 teams, head-to-head is not what ultimately breaks that tie.
What do you mean if it's 3 teams?
If it's 3 teams.
Texas A&M and Georgia all finished with 1 loss. It's
there you go.
guaranteed to be Georgia in Texas.
It would be Georgia and Texas, but it's why it's Georgia and Texas, Jason, that's complex. It's not Georgia and Texas because Texas beat Texas A&M. That's not why. It's because the first tiebreaker, you can't use head-to-head because A&M didn't play Georgia. And everybody didn't play everybody. The first tiebreaker there is common conference opponents. They would all have the same common conference opponents, which I think would be, it's like Florida and Mississippi State. Well, they both beat both of them. They all beat both of them. Then you have to you ultimately go to strength of schedule. Right now, Texas is leading that.
Opponent wins and losses?
Correct. Opponent wins and losses in conference. Texas at this moment has a higher ranking than those other 2. They would get that seed. Then you'd go into a tiebreaker with just A&M and Georgia. They didn't play each other. Georgia would win it based on the fact that they beat Texas and A&M did not in this scenario. They'd be 4-0 against the common teams. A&M would be 3-1. That's how technical this can all get. I'm just letting everybody know that because we might get to College Station and people are, walking around their tailgate going, well, it's just as simple as. It might not be if Georgia, Tennessee, and don't forget about LSU can still be involved. LSU's only got 1 conference loss. What happens if they're tied? They can be a part of one as well. And LSU today, as I'm talking, has the highest strength of schedule. But we got a long way to go.
Okay, But
Exactly.
what if
I know that's the face I've been making for about
all right?
3 days.
My brain feels broken, man. Right? It's like
I know.
It's like when Joe Rogan has that astrophysicist on his podcast. He doesn't understand what he's saying. Like, but have you figured out in your head how many teams can finish with one loss?
Right now, there's only 5 teams in that discussion because it's LSU, A&M, Georgia, Tennessee, Texas. Right now, that's everybody's got one loss except the Aggies who have none.
So,
Yeah, like,
so
let's check on this in like 3 weeks because this is
No, I
making my
know.
brain
I got
explode.
Jason. I'm with you. Trust me. But
Wait, I know. I want to play this game. So
Okay.
right now, who would get in? A&M and who?
in terms who's
If the season ended today, who's in?
if it ended today, now that's a great question. All right, so if it ended right now, let me just take a quick.
Because you have 3 teams at 6-1. I'm just curious. So Georgia,
technically,
Texas,
yeah,
and
onward it's
Tennessee.
Georgia because they played one more conference game than Texas and Tennessee and LSU, so they'd get in because they're 4-1 and everybody else is 3-1.
Okay, well, so yeah, all right. So then we can wait then. Okay,
Right, it's a technicality on that. Again, there's a lot of that technical stuff coming. I just want to make sure people understand that if you have 3 teams tied, you can't just say, well, 2 of them played and that's how we break the tie. That's not how they're going to do it.
You did say, I think you said strength of schedule was like 3rd or 4th in there, right?
It's like 3rd down the line.
Does that include only SEC games, I would assume, or does that include
Correct.
Okay.
Only SEC.
So Texas doesn't care about what Michigan does, and okay.
Correct. But it would help you. That's a good way to think about it, Jason.
Take into account for the
Say it again?
Big out of conference games aren't taken into account.
Not that, because this is just about figuring out who goes to Atlanta. So it's only
Right, but it's
SEC.
part of the body of work, and you're an SEC football team.
Right, but they're just this is their conference title game, so they're only going off conference games.
I don't know if Cotton's usually pretty good, but he says if LSU and A&M went out, they're both in. LSU guys are at Florida, Vandy, Oklahoma. Those are 3 winnable games.
Oh gosh.
Not to say they couldn't stumble against Vandy or at Florida, but that LSU team is not a SEC champion. That would be disappointing to see LSU playing in the conference championship game. They do not deserve to be in that game.
It would be wild. LSU, and that would be true. If LSU and A&M both went out, the Aggies would be undefeated. It's easy to see why they would be in. LSU, ultimately, I think that they would get in on a tiebreaker over Georgia. And in the end, it would be
ridiculous. Yeah.
It would be because they beat Bama and Georgia lost to Bama. That's how it would roll out. Because we don't need to get into
Texas gets left completely out.
Well, that's because Texas
they would have lost to A&M.
They would have lost to A&M and have 2 conference losses.
Okay.
Yeah. So all this is coming down the line. Just remember I said it when it gets weird.
I hope it doesn't come down to this, man.
I hope it doesn't either, Alex.
But you're going to have multiple teams that are going to be tied for number 2, though. That's the thing. Like you're going to have multiple teams that are probably going to be sitting at 2 conference losses.
You very well could. And then again, that's when you got to start looking, Anwar, at not just who played each other. It's go find the common conference opponents. For 2 teams that didn't play each other, that's going to start to matter too. And it's going to it gets complex really fast. But if you're a Texas fan, it's not going to hurt if the team, like Vanderbilt is a good example. At the end of the year, Vanderbilt's going to play Tennessee. It is better for Texas based on like the deep tiebreaker if Vandy wins that game, because that'll improve Texas's strength of schedule.
I'm going to use Chat GPT to help me figure out the answers when it's time.
There you go.
I'm gonna enter in the format. I'm gonna enter in the records, and like you tell me, because I don't got time to figure this out.
I'll stop hurting everybody's head.
Real quickly, if you're a Texas fan, you need to be rooting for South Carolina this weekend. You need to be rooting for all the 1-loss teams.
Root for Florida.
Root for Florida over Georgia.
Absolutely. Big. And does Tennessee play this week? Kentucky,
Tennessee
right?
plays Kentucky at Tennessee. So you need to be rooting for Kentucky to pull the upset. Yeah.
That is absolutely it. Root for those teams to get their second conference loss, or in A&M's case, their first conference loss. And then just on the side, just kind of root for teams you've already beaten to then win. But you've had that before in college football, right? You want your strength to schedule. It's like when Texas beat Michigan earlier this year. You don't want Michigan to then lose every other game. So then it looks like you didn't beat anybody. Like you still have that mindset. All right, I'll stop confusing everybody. Thanks everybody for liking and subscribing and getting your notifications. 32 days away from Texas and Texas A&M. What will they be when we get there? Got a lot of football left to figure that out. Texas fans, enjoy your bye week, enjoy your off week, but enjoy it with us here at Orange Bloods Live. We got House Divided coming up at noon. You got Football with Friends with Alex and Cody coming up at 6. Anwar's got the old fashioned for you mornings at 9 a.m. Jason and I are going to hit you with a recruiting show tomorrow. That'll be a Wednesday at 10 a.m. Recruiting, you know, that never stops. Coming out of a huge weekend, another big SEC weekend. We'll take a look at everything that's going on there. And I noticed that Jason and Anwar today on the old fashioned might have been discussing a little Texas and Texas A&M recruiting, you know, because it's a big deal. And it never, ever goes away. That's why we're here. Thank you for your support. Thanks to you that jumped in the Specs chat. We appreciate Specs for all of their support. And I don't think we let the folks see Lisa and the rabbit today as we're getting closer to Halloween. Let's get that. Good costume idea maybe for you. Here you go.
Specs same-day delivery can save the day with our Specs app or online shopping. From world-class wines to hard-to-find spirits and craft beers to gourmet foods, delicious snacks, and spectacular sweets. It's Specs. Cheers to savings.
All right, y'all have a good rest of your Tuesday. Until next Tuesday morning at 10, this is the Modcast, and this is Orange Bloods Live.